You're listening to the Future of Convenience podcast, featuring senior retail executives and experts in the global convenience and mobility industry. Welcome to the Future of Convenience podcast. I'm Carolyn Schnare, and today I'm joined by a brand new co-host today, Martin Bailie. Martin has an enormous amount of experience in retail and technology that has helped transform and launch companies in Europe, Asia, India, and the U.S., including Tesco and Tata. Lidl is an advisor for several companies and is the founder and principal of MWB Advising. Martin is also a judge for our Smartest Store in the World competition. So, Martin, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, it's great to be here in with two heads, joining you as a co-host for the first time. But also, we're going to talk about the smartest store in the world as well, which I'm quite excited about as well.
I am very excited for that. And we're also going to take a virtual journey over to China. We're going to talk about technology shift taking place at retail, both internal and customer facing, and how China is leading that evolution and what it means for the global industry as a whole.
Brand new AI just changed the game for retail. Plexer catches theft in real time, spots safety hazards before someone gets hurt, and predicts demand spikes, all from your existing cameras. No new hardware. This is the kind of AI that didn't exist before. Retailers using it are recovering and making thousands more every month. Go to plexer.ai, request a demo now.
So before we jump into our guest, Martin, I really wanted to quickly touch on the Smartest Store in the World competition, which is underway for judging by you and your cohorts. So Martin, you're going to be soon leading up this global judging panel. And since we're going to be talking about technology today in this episode, I wanted to put a little plug in for the robust entries soon available on our website for the world to see at globalconvenience.com. And while you'll get access to these soon, you've been helping to promote the competition, and I wanted to get your take on what the competition means to retail industry and your thoughts on what you hope to see from our retail entries.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I'm pretty excited about it. I joined Dan Munford in the team with the privilege of being a judge for the first time for the smartest store in the world. I think with a lot of awards, I will always kind of find that it's historical. It's last year's amazing performance and you win an award. What I'm smitten with this award is I believe it's more to do with the North Star of convenience, the North Star of retail, and it's about the future and forward thinking. So from me, what I see already with the entries, there is a huge amount around technology, but also how it infuses with the colleague, so the human aspect. And I think that's where I find the biggest passion for this judge opportunity, where you look at technology, how it interacts with the human, both customer and colleague, and actually the biggest impact on the customer experience, the biggest impact on NPS scoring, so satisfaction. And ultimately, that's what we're here for. We're here to satisfy the customer. That's the internal customer and the external customer. And I think this competition is unique, and I'm going to class it as the North Star of retail. So very excited to be on the panel.
That's awesome. I really wish I had that in the marketing on the way in. So I'm going to use that again next time. I love North Star. Well, thank you for all your help with that. And go ahead over to globalconvenience.com to check out some of these entries. But we're going to pop over to our guest, and I'm so sorry to keep you waiting over. You're patiently in the wings. Today, we're meeting with Marcus Spurrell, who is the CEO of DMALL with a long background in technology and retail in Hong Kong, Ahold Delhaize, Adidas, and Reebok. Marcus, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Great to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Well, before we jump into the continuously evolving and growing Chinese technology retail, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your experience at DMALL?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I've spent, I guess, about 20 years of my life in Asia, 10 years in Japan, 10 years in Hong Kong. Most recently, I was the CTO of DFI Retail Group, based out of Hong Kong, but with like 10,000 stores in 10 countries across Asia. And when I landed there in 2018, we had a lot of tech that was really kind of end of life, right up and down the stack across a whole bunch of businesses all across Asia. We really kind of we were very excited by what we were seeing was happening in China in terms of technology around supermarkets. At that time, you just saw the advent of Alibaba, starting its own supermarkets, all on its own tech, which was the Hema stores, of course. JD was doing the same thing with 7 Fresh. You had Meituan opening Ella. A whole different way of approaching technology for the supermarket business. And so I went into China to look for solutions for DFI Retail Group, and I met up with DMALL, its very enigmatic, extraordinary founder, who's a very high-profile retail tycoon, I guess you would call him. Doesn't feel like a tycoon to me. It just feels like boss, very nice man, but a super smart guy. And I signed. We liked what we saw. We did some due diligence. I signed a joint venture in 2019. And for 5 years, we kind of implemented the DMALL technology up and down the stack across DFI. And then I guess 2.5 years ago, I jumped ship and actually joined DMALL to lead the international side of their business.
So Marcus, look, thanks for being here. Great that you can tell about the story of DMALL, but also your history there as well. The way I see DMALL is kind of the brains of how you allow traditional bricks and mortar retailers to compete with the big boys that you've already mentioned, Amazon and Alibaba. But in terms of agentic commerce and gaining momentum, in particular in China, how is AI driving operational efficiencies in retail there? And what should the rest of the world pay attention to? Because generally speaking, a lot of newness comes out of China that the rest of the world can learn. And we can flip that question after this as well. But actually, what is the rest of the world waiting to see, and how can we improve our customer experience at the same time?
So I think what you see a lot in China is, as you say, a very high pace of innovation. A lot of that just comes from having internal teams in the technology groups that compete with each other, and they throw stuff at the wall to see what will stick. So the pace of innovation in China is insane. If you go there and you're on the streets, you can see the change visibly every sort of 3 to 6 months as you go there. Within retail, what we see is that there's been a lot of work done to unify the stack from a data perspective, right? So again, if you look at the big e-commerce players, what they've done is build almost these kind of single digital systems that power retail. And when you do that and you have this unified data capability, you have an ability to kind of apply AI on top of that in a way that is very powerful and more immediate in terms of outcomes than if you have, a lot of different systems that are constantly kind of decaying in terms of turning into technological debt. They're systems that need to communicate with each other, and you have these kind of hybrid. I call them a Frankenstein monster, right? But it's the norm certainly in Western retail, that you have a lot of different systems that need to be connected together. Whereas in China, what you see is a lot more of an integrated data capability from the outset. And so what that gives you is homogeneous data that's connected, that can be surfaced to different devices or into an analytical engine, where you have real-time data, digital data that can be potentially, certainly in the case of DMALL and our clients, completely up and down the stack. So if you take, for example, auto replenishment in the supermarket industry, historically, where we would have been using kind of rule-based algorithms and then moved towards machine learning, what you see today is that whole layer is really now having just AI applied kind of to the top of it, and where it makes sense, that can be agentic and broken apart, right? So let me give you an example. So we have started working with Google. Google have the unified commerce platform. This is an agentic layer that Google has that communicates out with retailers like ourselves. It connects into our agent group, passing us a request for, Gemini might have a client that wants to purchase, I don't know, a grocery basket of some type. That virtual basket within Gemini is passed to us and created by our agents into a real into a real basket, and then different agents go out and look for what is the inventory on this, what is the pricing on this, where is this product stored, and then starts to create kind of a picking routine, and then the whole fulfillment of the order is passed down. We execute the fulfillment, and it's passed back. And I think what you'll see is that this application of AI to what are normal retail processes today is happening faster in China than anywhere else, right? So, for example, markdown pricing in a supermarket, very important in terms of protecting margins and lowering waste, right? In our supermarkets today, we use AI agents to autonomously run markdown pricing at the end of every day. So different agents will go out, they'll look at inventory, they'll look at expiry dates, they'll look at competitor pricing. They bring all of that back to a central brain, and then that brain makes decisions based on margin protection and on waste management that are set by commercial teams, and then automatically marks down the prices and sends that out to electronic shelf labels, so that kind of in real time, towards the end of the day, you're seeing this step down in prices. So I think what you'll see is because these systems are more unified from a data perspective and therefore digital and more real time, you'll see very quickly that the advances in the capabilities around all of the essential processes within retail the changes are going to happen faster there than they're happening, I think, elsewhere.
So I suppose to summarize, Asia, in particular China, is obviously leading the way with the super app agent, is the way you've described it. And in the West, they're pioneering the brand agnostic concierge. So the example of Walmart is a perfect example, where they're leader in the West, of course, agent to agent B2B negotiations, where bots negotiate cost terms for smaller suppliers and brings that integrity of at SKU level. Metro Group is another one, which is a DMALL partner in Poland, where you have over 500 stores, where you're bringing that digital store model to Poland. So maybe using a Western head, how can AI or how can the West even maybe educate the East in terms of China and how advanced they are, which they can do, of course.
Again, we're really, when we talk about agentic capabilities within DMALL, today, I mean, that really is the application of that capability to just core retail processes. We are, in terms of kind of agent to agent commerce, as I said, we today do not use this in Polo, but we are starting in Asia to look at what we do with, for example, Google, that is doing that kind of agent to agent commerce. But really, in Poland today, again, what you would see is the core things that customers are looking for us, which is, what are the e-commerce applications? How can I use agents to more quickly serve up promotions to customers in real time, whether they're placing an order with us online or whether they're navigating a store, so that we can use kind of graph and RAG-based models to identify the customer better, understand their history, select a group of promotions based on what we know about their tendency to redeem, how much value we want to give them within a loyalty ladder. We can bring in AI and agents to that and process data at an enormous scale in real time for the customer. And again, I do think that always just comes back to this unified real-time data set. If you have a real-time POS, you have a single inventory visibility capability that gives you real-time data, then when you bring in AI on top of that, you can really kind of accelerate processes in a way that I think is unique and gives you competitive advantage.
I have a question on that, and I've heard about the shelf labels there that are electronic and just they're like you said, real time. you also said you do a daily crawl for inventory and you make sure, and competitive pricing and everything. So just out of curiosity, do you ever roll those out, like those price changes out real time, or is it always done at like the end of the day or whatever that you declare that is? In other words, like if some, extraordinary event happened, you wanted to like immediately lower prices. Like how do you do that?
No, it's real time. So that's the whole point about it's real time and it's done autonomously. That's the point about the agentic layer that controls what we call that AI-led dynamic markdown pricing. And that is an agent brain that sits at the center of that process, controls those agents that go out, and then has been given authority by the commercial team as a preset on what level of margin it can protect at what kind of hour, if you like, down through the end of the day, based on the information that the agents have, right? Those expiry dates, competitive pricing, whatever it might be. And so the agentic layer autonomously executes the entire thing, right? It is working within the parameters given to it by commercial teams. But once those parameters are set, then it runs. And of course, the commercial teams are very sensitive to this. Protecting margins is extraordinarily important. Waste is important. So these things are checked very carefully. It took us a year and a half to kind of, work just within our own business, because we have our own supermarket in China, the third largest supermarket in China, just to kind of hone and refine these. And now we start to roll those out to our clients across our SaaS platform in China. But that's the core model, is that this is autonomous and therefore it is real-time updating. So, it might be that it's a fight, at 4 o'clock, the brain, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, the brain runs and it does its first markdown on stuff that's due to expire. It does a cut, it reduces the price, then runs again at 5 o'clock, reduces it a little bit further, and it's doing that at 6 o'clock or whatever down through the day. So it's autonomously updating fundamentally two things, because we pick at scale in store. So for example, we pick 300,000 orders a day in our Beijing stores. So it's very important that the e-commerce pickers application, as well as the ESL, get that data in real time from the markdown, right? So the ESL are updated, the e-commerce applications are updated, they're synchronized, and that's how we manage the markdown.
So in terms of the impact that you're going to have, or what we're hearing is going to have on global retailing, with kind of mobile payments in China almost entirely cashless and powered by the super app like Alipay and WeChat Pay, what does the level of adoption mean for the future of retail, and in particular the digital transactions globally?
I think if you look, for example, at first of all, just the tech behind the payment platform itself, the different forms of payment, right? So as you say, China has jumped into the future on payments in a number of different ways, right? It's a post-cash society, it's a post-credit card society. All payments are digital, and then the forms of that payment are anything from kind of QR code scanning, which is your basic day-to-day way of paying in China. Most places you go to, they are self-checkouts. Most people are scanning a QR code and paying. But if you look in the convenience store business in particular, what you're seeing is really strong adoption of facial payments and palm payments, right? So, and face payments in particular, I think really help to kind of define or reinforce kind of what does convenience mean, right? Of course, convenience can mean time. It means, it means assortment, it means location, it means a whole bunch of different things. But one of those elements is time, right? And if you watch a customer go into a convenience store in Guangzhou in the morning, the store will be absolutely packed with customers. But those customers are in the store for 15 to 20 seconds each, because they go in, they hit a button on the screen, they know what they want, they hit a coffee, they hit pay. The payment with the face happens like in sub 100 milliseconds. It's instant. And the system produces a QR code. You take that to a desk. Coffees are already laid out. The staff don't interact with the customers any longer in a convenience store in rush hour in parts of China where you have very high traffic and you have very strong competition. Guangzhou, near Hong Kong, being a prime example. because the staff are just busy behind the counter preparing coffees, preparing hot food, and it's just all laid out. Customers come in, they hit the button, they pay with their face, which is instant, and then they move forward. So I think from one perspective, I mean, there are obviously privacy concerns around that, perhaps in the West. But when I talk to retailers in the West, they still think it's interesting in the convenience space to think about that as one way of kind of improving throughput and really delivering on the promise of the word convenience in retail. Palm is another one. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but you can link your Palm to your WeChat account, and then you just can pay with like a touch of the palm. It's not quite as fast as the face, but it's less maybe in your face, as it were, excuse the pun. And then I think beyond that, obviously, what you can look at is in the underlying data. When you have these digital payment systems, it gives you an additional dimension to the data that is very interesting. I was visiting Alibaba's headquarters a few years ago, and they were talking us through how they spent time just inside their data, looking at what this data set, now that they had the digital payments, time of day, what people were buying, what businesses could they spin up based on this set. And throughout the day, they brought in different companies that they had spun up just from looking at the data. And so the Alibaba travel company would come in. They're like a year old, and they're already the second largest travel company in the world because they cater to the domestic audience that is using either WeChat or Alipay or both for every single transaction that they do. So 900 million people a day are transacting on WeChat. It's a huge amount of data. So they had the second largest travel company. They had the third largest healthcare company. They were just spinning up models based on, the data that they had, and they have a lot of data in the first place, but that payment component really brought an additional dimension to kind of what they could do.
So that level of data, that level of personal data, let's be honest, is kind of a utopia, not just for China, for all retailers globally. When you talk about tapping into that digital ecosystem that you've referred to, and that real-time data that you've referred to make it a hyper-personalized experience. Can you tell us more about loyalty, hyper-personalization, and what non-Asia can learn from Asia?
So again, I think if I go back to a core principle of the founder of DMALL, Dr. Daniel Zhang, who happens to share the same name as the former Alibaba chairman, but his core vision, I mean, he was part of the group of people in China in the mid-2010s that came up with that evolved this concept of O2O, online to offline to online. So not really thinking about e-commerce as a separate channel, not really thinking about omni-channel, but really thinking about the customer and the store being part of the same, digital fabric, if you like, right? So there is no difference. The customer should not only be engaged with you digitally outside of the store, but the store should provide multiple reasons why a customer should engage when they arrive, when they enter the store. So, and store managers are KPI'd on making sure that customers who walk into the store should walk out being engaged engaged digitally. This is not the mindset, or historically has certainly not been the mindset. It's changing a little bit, but there's always fears in the West of cannibalization and other elements, right? So this idea when you have customers that are coming into stores, they are interacting with the store digitally, whether it's for scan and go or intelligent shopping trolleys, QR codes on live fish swimming around the tank in fish tanks, retail media in the store. We are trying at all times to engage the customer at multiple levels to build the data set and then leverage that data set to know more about the customer and be able to deliver to them real-time offers, whether that's in the store or outside of the store. So the holy grail of all loyalty programs is, leveraging data to change customer behavior. And I think the digital ecosystem. I mean, this whole concept, I think, of a digital ecosystem, again, is more Alibaba in particular. I think back in 2017, they were the first to really build it. Amazon was not necessarily far behind, but it's not so comprehensive. So really, but when you take that right down just to the level of a retail store, but you have a lot of customers over a lot of stores across an entire estate, the richer your data, the more you can leverage that data to provide impulses to customers that will change their behavior and hopefully push them higher up the ladder. And that's the transformation we see.
And in the world of the one-click checkout, which is globally, we move to the zero-click checkout as a possibility. And that's where the agent makes the final call. In terms of brand loyalty, does it still exist, or is it going to be replaced by an algorithm loyalty? What's your thoughts on that? Because what we're hearing and what we're seeing, undoubtedly we can learn, but there's always, you mentioned privacy and data protection on a previous statement, but this is probably more around the brand loyalty in terms of the agent that will make the final call. What's your thoughts there?
I don't see, to be absolutely honest with you, I don't see at the moment, at least in my world, my purview, I don't see a lot of that happening. Where I do read about it, I'm not convinced at this point in time that that is happening at scale, or that honestly it will. I don't know. That's a bit my personal view. I've seen some feedback data from Amazon that saying that it's not, that there's some way to go before that's going to be something that's really going to happen. So I think that's, I think there was a kind of precursor of that. I remember reading at some point, and I don't know if it was apocryphal or what, but that Amazon was, customers were generally clicking something like 20%, ordering 20% of, if you buy this, you might also like this. And they were saying that if they could get that number above 50%, they wouldn't wait for customers to actually order it. They would just start shipping it. And effectively, which would be an interesting sort of concept, to have things just turn up on your doorstep, right?
Yeah, that would be bad in my household, I think. That would be really bad.
I guess if you back up from that one layer, or you get into that concept of agents but to me, I don't know. I think that's I can see a world where I can give an agent tiered levels of permission to act on my behalf and let it loose. But there's a lot of memes out there on the internet. It only has to go wrong once, and it's a bit chaotic. So yeah, I think that one's still, at least in my experience, and I'm not seeing anything in China that says anything different. I think that one's got a little bit of distance to go.
I think I'd have a pile of, I've already looked at a purse today, some Gatorades. I'm curious, if that were the case, I'd walk upstairs right now and I'd have the UPS guy scowling at me because he's here 10 times a day. So here in the US, because I have an Amazon warehouse just like right down the street. So everything's instantaneous, but that's a pretty cool concept. Maybe.
Dangerous, very dangerous.
Dangerous, exactly.
Yeah. In terms of DMALL being a game changer, and it is a game changer, and I'm allowed to compliment you. I know you're very modest. And we're talking about the China story. Is there anything you would like to share with us on why it is a game changer and why it's not just a China story?
So I often try to start my presentations with a statement that's not, I'm a humble person by nature, but I do think I'm a believer in what we do, and I'm a believer in the system, I'm a believer in the tech, I'm a believer in the whole ecosystem concept and this kind of digital fabric, but also our founder had two visions, right? One was the one I've outlined earlier about the kind of customer and the store being connected. But the second one was that this whole Western concept of having kind of different vendors for different components of your stack and of your value chain in China is just not the mindset. The mindset is it's more efficient to have a single operating system for retail that has two apps that come out of it. One is a customer app and the other is the employee app, right? Our stores are paperless, our warehouses are paperless. I no longer have, 12, or actually in my case, 18 different expiring contracts with SAP that I need to manage. I don't have 45 different vendors to deal with in my stack. I've got one vendor. This was when I was at DFI Retail. I've got one vendor up and down the stack, which is DMALL, one single integrated, real-time, cloud-based technology system, and you can view it as an inventory management system. Inventory enters the system, and it's completely visible until it leaves the system. This is, I think, a holy grail for retailers. I know where my inventory came in. I know where it is as it moves through the system, and then I know once it's on the shelf or it's in an e-commerce picker's, hand or basket, I know where it's leaving. And I don't have to hook together all of these different systems to make the data flow. I don't have to deal with 41 different vendors. I'm not signing hundreds of contracts. I've got a single system. I can surface any data point in real time to any screen anywhere. Our warehouses are full of screens. Our backrooms of our stores have command centers, and that's a digital real-time system. And that's why, for the last 2.5 years with the advent in particular of Gen AI, we just start throwing Gen AI and agentic capabilities at the whole value chain. And some places it works and some places it doesn't, right? Anti-fraud systems above self-checkout. We use a lot of camera vision. So in camera vision, AI lends itself beautifully, right? So I can track customers in the store. I can track the length of queues in the store. I can track nighttime remote deliveries to my warehouses. All this stuff that requires compute at the edge. So we work very closely with NVIDIA in China, for example. So we use a lot of compute at the edge, but AI lends itself beautifully. Mathematical rote stuff like demand forecasting, auto replenishment, again, it works, it works really well. And so that to me is kind of the future. For the last couple of years, I think that should be a view of the future. But the West does not seem to be moving towards that. That isn't something that's catching fire. In Asia, it's spreading, but it is not in the West. And, I can tell you, I've talked to some CTOs of some of the companies mentioned in your name there. And those guys are really fascinated by it conceptually, but nervous about the idea of having a single vendor and a single technology system, right? So, and I get it. I understand that, right? So at DFI, we took a big leap to do it, and it paid off. But some things will just take, that they're going to take more time. But in China, there's no such concern. Chinese are just all about how can I innovate, how much data can I have, because I need the data in order to fuel the ideas that will drive innovation.
It's almost science fiction to me, because I'm over here in the far West where we've turned off where Amazon just turned off the Palm payment. Martin, do you have any closing thoughts on everything you've heard today? It's been a fascinating conversation. It's just learning just the coolest things that may eventually be coming down the pike.
Yeah, I look, first of all, I enjoyed the candid discussion, Marcus, even your honesty towards the West and the adoption and the privacy and the data protection. And the reality is unified commerce and agentic commerce is here to thrive for retail. Retail has to become more agile. The case studies that Marcus is referring to in terms of stock integrity, in terms of shrink, in terms of waste, in terms of markdown, in terms of customer journey and loyalty. These are all the things that are on every retailer's agenda. So I think we can learn from what the China journey, if you want to think of it that way, or the East. I think there is still a West that can also support China or Asia, for example. So it's just like anything, but in terms of forward thinking, cutting down barriers, simplifying, becoming more agile, you've just heard an amazing example of what great looks like. It's then each of the relative retailers in their relative regions to adapt, but ultimately you've just heard the utopia. So it was great. Thank you very much indeed, Marcus.
Thank you. Thanks very much for inviting me.
Well, I'm just to seal up a little bit of both of your terms. I'm a huge believer in convenience, efficiency, and agility. Martin, a word you just mentioned as well. And this has been a really fascinating conversation. I just love hearing what's like I said, in the future, what may or may not be coming down the pike over here in the West. And hopefully one of these days I'll get over and see what's happening over there. So Marcus and Martin, I really appreciate your time today, for joining me for your candid conversation. And I look forward to hearing, seeing, and reading more about everything. So thank you so much again. And thanks for being on the show. And thank you for listening to The Future of Convenience.
Thank you for listening to the Future of Convenience podcast, produced by Dan Munford, Jenna Ferguson, and Lorraine Evans. It is produced and edited and mixed by Carolyn Schnare, and music is provided by Jukebox Music. Learn more at globalconvenience.com. Before you go, it's Carolyn over here. I wanted to update you on our current exciting competition from Insight Research that we've been talking about on the last several episodes. The Smartest Store in the World competition is focused on the innovative adoption of new technologies, and we just posted all 21 entries from 12 countries on our website, globalconvenience.com. And I invite you to go over right now and check them all out. On April 30th, that list will narrow to a short list, and then it gets super exciting where you, listener, can vote on the top 3. Voting closes on June 4th, and the winner will be announced on June 17th online and at the next Convenience Summit Europe in Warsaw, Poland. Head over to globalconvenience.com now and check out the 21 smartest stores, find some inspiration and new ideas, and follow us on LinkedIn for further coverage. The Smartest Store in the World competition is hosted by Insight Research and NACS, along with Accenture serving as the official knowledge partner. It's sponsored by Invenco, powered by Vontier, Plexor, and VenHub. Check it out while they're up there. Have fun.